They expect noise, they expect chaos, they expect a public breakdown, because that is how most men are programmed to respond when pressure reaches its peak. They expect you to explode so they can label you, control the narrative, and reduce you to a predictable emotional pattern. But you don't. You go silent. You become still. You step backward into the shadow, not to hide, but to observe. This is where weak men shout and reveal their desperation. This is where average men beg to be understood, mistaking explanation for strength. This is where emotional men burn bridges just to feel seen for a moment. But the Sigma male does not explode. He disappears, not out of fear, not out of defeat, but out of precision, because explosions are loud, impulsive, and easy to anticipate. Disappearance fractures expectations. Disappearance introduces uncertainty. Disappearance shifts the power dynamic instantly. Picture the moment in American Psycho when Bateman stares into the mirror, adjusting his tie with surgical calm. No rage, no panic, just control. That scene isn't about madness, it's about detachment. It's the aura of a man who already decided the outcome long before anyone else entered the room. The Sigma understands something most people never will. Silence is not weakness, silence is power, refined through discipline. Loud reactions are for men who need validation from the room. Strategic absence is for men who already know their worth without witnesses. When you disappear, you deny them access to your energy. You deny them the reaction they rehearsed for. You deny them closure, and the human mind hates unfinished stories. That discomfort becomes your leverage. This is not retreat, this is repositioning. You are not running away from the battlefield, you are changing terrain while everyone else is still fighting the last war. From the outside, it looks like withdrawal, but internally it is calculation. Distance sharpens perception. Stillness restores authority. And in that quiet, while others exhaust themselves explaining, defending and proving, you are becoming something far more dangerous than loud resistance. You are becoming a ghost, unreadable, untouchable, and impossible to control. Number one, the moment you refuse to explode. There is a specific moment when the world expects noise from you, a moment engineered by pressure, layered by disrespect, and sharpened by the quiet assumption that you will eventually crack. The environment watches closely, almost hungrily, waiting for your emotional collapse, because collapse is predictable, collapse is familiar, and predictability is easy to control. Most men comply without ever realizing what they have surrendered. They raise their voice to reclaim dignity. They over-explain to feel understood. They react to feel powerful. And in that instant, they hand over authorship of the moment. The frame is no longer theirs. The Sigma male moves in the opposite direction. He pauses, not because he is confused, not because he lacks words, not because he is afraid of confrontation. He pauses because he understands something most men never learn. The first man to react loses the psychological high ground. Reaction is obedience disguised as strength. This is where disappearance is born, not as avoidance, not as retreat, but as a deliberate refusal to perform emotional labor for people who have not earned access to his inner world. When you do not explode, you deny them the satisfaction of seeing your internal machinery at work. You deny them leverage, you deny them confirmation. Your aura remains intact because nothing leaked out to be studied, twisted, or weaponized. Silence steps in where emotion would have failed. Silence creates asymmetry. It destabilizes the social equation. The other side begins to feel the imbalance and scrambles to correct it. They talk more. They justify themselves. They project motives onto you. They fill the empty space with their own insecurities, assumptions, and anxieties, while you remain still, watching patterns emerge in real time. This stillness is not passivity, it is observation sharpened into advantage. This is the psychological edge most men never wield because they confuse power with intensity. But real power looks like restraint under pressure. The Sigma male does not need to demonstrate strength in the moment because he understands that strength compounds when it is delayed. He knows that explosions end conversations, but silence starts obsessions. Long after the moment passes, they replay the interaction, wondering what you were thinking, what you saw, and what you know. When you refuse to explode, you do more than protect your energy. You quietly rewrite the dynamic. You become unreadable, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is not chaos, it is a controlled mystery. It is the foundation of psychological dominance. Number 2, disappearance as strategic withdrawal, not emotional collapse. Disappearance is often misunderstood because most people only know how to vanish emotionally, not strategically, and that confusion causes them to project weakness onto what is actually discipline. They assume absence means avoidance, fear, or surrender, because their own withdrawals are usually driven by overwhelm or insecurity. The Sigma male operates from a different internal architecture entirely. His disappearance is not emotional, it is logistical, calculated, and rooted in self-respect. It is a conscious decision to remove himself from environments, conversations, and relationships that extract more than they contribute. He understands a fundamental law most people never articulate. Proximity is currency, and access is leverage. When you are always available, your presence becomes background noise. Familiarity dulls perception, and value depreciates. When you become scarce, attention recalibrates automatically. Disappearance shifts the balance of power without a single argument, explanation, or display of force. It creates a vacuum, and vacuums force reflection. Others are left to confront the absence you created, and absence is louder than words. Humans are neurologically wired to seek closure, feedback, and resolution. When none is provided, the mind loops. Questions surface, interpretations multiply, doubt forms. And in that silence, respect begins to grow, because what cannot be accessed is often re-evaluated. The Sigma male understands this dynamic, not as manipulation, but as consequence. He has already observed the pattern. He has already measured the energy exchange. Repetition to him is confirmation. When disrespect repeats, explanation becomes inefficient. Words lose their corrective power. At that point, withdrawal is no longer an emotional reaction. It is the only intelligent move available. This is not passive aggression and is not silent treatment. It is non-participation. And non-participation is the highest form of control in a world addicted to reaction, validation, and noise. The Sigma does not disappear to punish, confuse, or provoke longing. He disappears to protect momentum. His trajectory matters more than winning misunderstandings. His time matters more than proving points. His growth does not pause because someone else refuses to evolve. He simply keeps moving, reducing friction, conserving energy, and reallocating focus. Out of sight does not mean out of power. It means power has been withdrawn from places that no longer deserve it. He moves quietly, deliberately, and without resentment, carrying his purpose forward while others are left to sit with the echo of his absence. Number 3, the aura shift that happens in silence. Something profound happens when a man stops explaining himself, and it is not loud, dramatic, or theatrical. It is internal, structural, and deeply psychological. His words begin to weigh more because he uses fewer of them. And every sentence now carries intention rather than anxiety. His presence begins to feel denser because it is no longer diluted by unnecessary exposure, oversharing, or the constant need to be understood. This is the aura shift, subtle but unmistakable, a recalibration that occurs not in how he speaks, but in how others feel around him. People sense it before they can explain it, because silence forces the environment to adjust. When you no longer narrate your decisions, people must infer your intent. When you stop defending your boundaries, they are left with only two choices: respect them or lose access entirely. The Sigma male understands something most men never confront. That explanation is often an unconscious bid for validation. It signals a need for agreement in order to feel justified and a need to be seen as reasonable, good, or correct. He removes this need completely. He doesn't argue for his standards, he lives them. He does not announce his direction, he moves. His actions speak with finality, not because he is cold, but because he is settled. This is where the ghost emerges, not as a myth or persona, but as a psychological effect. When you disappear from unnecessary rooms, your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. Conversations about you shift in tone. Curiosity replaces familiarity. Speculation replaces certainty. People begin to fill the silence you left with their own projections, and that projection gives you power without effort. This is not manipulation. It is a natural consequence. Humans value what they cannot easily access, and they respect what does not beg to be understood. The Sigma male becomes a masterpiece by subtraction. He trims the excess explanations, the emotional leaks, the performative honesty, and the urge to clarify himself to people who have not earned that access. He removes the noise. What remains is a concentrated presence that lingers even when he is not physically there. This is aura, not charisma, not charm, not dominance, but quiet gravity, the kind that pulls without chasing and commands without speaking. Number 4, why disappearance generates fear without aggression. There is a specific kind of fear that does not come from threat, violence, or confrontation, but from uncertainty, the quiet unease of not knowing where you stand, of sensing influence slipping away without warning, of realizing relevance is no longer guaranteed. This fear is triggered most powerfully by disappearance, because disappearance removes predictability. A man who explodes can be analyzed. His patterns are visible. His emotional thresholds can be measured. His reactions follow a sequence that the mind can prepare for. But a man who disappears leaves nothing behind to study. No explanation, no emotional debris, no final argument to replay. He removes the data people rely on to feel in control. That absence unsettles the mind, not because people are weak, but because the human psyche is wired to seek closure, resolution, and narrative completion. When none arrives, the mind loops endlessly, replaying conversations, facial expressions, and moments of tension, searching for the point where control was lost. The Sigma male understands this instinctively. He does not vanish out of spite or manipulation, but out of clarity. He knows that attention given without respect is a slow erosion of self. By withdrawing completely, he denies others the comfort of emotional access. Respect begins to form, not because he demands it, but because distance forces reflection. In silence, people reassess their tone, their assumptions, and their entitlement. They wonder what changed, what line was crossed, and what they failed to notice in real time. Meanwhile, the Sigma is no longer participating in that internal debate. He has already exited the emotional contract. He is no longer invested in being understood, justified, or validated. This creates a powerful asymmetry. One side is busy processing loss, confusion, and unanswered questions. The other side is reallocating energy, refining direction, and building forward momentum. Disappearance creates fear, not through intimidation, but through finality. It communicates a willingness to walk away without explanation, apology, or spectacle. And that willingness signals something rare, self-sufficiency so complete that approval is unnecessary. In a world where most people negotiate their worth through constant presence and reassurance, the man who can disappear cleanly demonstrates a level of inner stability that cannot be faked, argued with, or ignored. Number 5, the Sigma Code. When absence is the only correct move. Not every situation requires disappearance, and the Sigma male understands this with precision rather than emotion. He is not impulsive, not reactive, and not driven by wounded pride or momentary frustration. He is discerning. He observes first. He studies tone, effort, consistency, and respect over time. He disappears only when patterns become undeniable, when behaviors repeat without correction, and when explanations have already been given and ignored. He notices when effort is no longer reciprocal, when he is expected to give clarity while receiving confusion, and when respect becomes conditional on his silence, compliance, or self-reduction. He recognizes when conversations begin to loop without resolution, when the same issues resurface because they are not meant to be solved, but tolerated. To him, repeated friction is not bad luck or misunderstanding, it is information. It reveals the hierarchy of values at play. It shows who is invested in growth and who is invested in control. At that point, persistence stops being patience and starts becoming self-betrayal. The Sigma male understands that chasing understanding from people committed to misunderstanding him is a losing transaction. He does not over-explain himself to those who profit from confusion. He does not negotiate boundaries with people who repeatedly cross them and then act surprised by consequences. He understands that boundaries explained more than once are no longer boundaries, they are suggestions. So he removes himself quietly, cleanly, without announcement, no speeches, no threats, no dramatic exits designed to provoke guilt or regret. This is the line that separates disappearance from drama. Drama seeks witnesses. Drama wants reactions, apologies, validation, and control of the narrative. Disappearance seeks peace. The Sigma male does not need the last word because he is not trying to win an argument. He is trying to preserve alignment between his values, his time, and his inner stability. His time is finite. His energy is valuable. His focus is intentional. He invests it only where it is recognized, respected, and multiplied, not drained. When he leaves, it may appear sudden to those who are not paying attention, but it was anything but impulsive. The decision was formed quietly, long before the exit, through accumulated observations, unmet standards, and ignored boundaries. By the time he disappears, the conversation is already over. The silence is not punishment. It is closure. Number 6, becoming the ghost, without losing yourself. There is a danger in disappearance if it is done without grounding, because absence without intention collapses inward and begins to rot. Silence, when it lacks direction, does not sharpen the mind. It isolates it. Withdrawal, when driven by resentment rather than clarity, hardens into bitterness. This is the trap most men fall into when they retreat from the world. They confuse vanishing with escaping. The Sigma male does not make this mistake. He understands that disappearance is not a retreat from life, but a reorientation toward it. He does not dissolve into emptiness or wait passively for meaning to arrive. He anchors himself in creation. He vanishes into work, into repetition, into discipline that compounds quietly over time. His days become structured, not chaotic. His solitude becomes intentional, not reactive. While others use isolation to replay wounds, he uses it to build systems. While others grow fragile in silence, he becomes dense. His shadow is not a hiding place where fear festers. It is a workshop where raw material is shaped under pressure. Every unanswered message, every ignored invitation, every quiet night is converted into refinement. He studies, he trains, he observes patterns others are too distracted to notice. While people speculate about his absence, imagining decline or defeat, he is reducing noise and increasing signal. This is the final layer most people never see because it produces no spectacle. Disappearance for the Sigma male is not the end of engagement with the world. It is the recalibration of engagement. He is not disconnecting, he is recalculating where his energy yields the highest return. He removes himself from low-leverage environments so that his presence, when it returns, carries consequence. And he always returns on his own terms, not when he is summoned, not when he is missed, not when the world demands an explanation. He returns when alignment is complete, when skill has replaced emotion, when structure has replaced impulse. And when he does reappear, he carries a different weight, a quieter authority, a presence that does not seek validation because it has already been earned in private. He does not announce his growth because growth that needs announcing is incomplete. He lets contrast speak for him. The difference between who he was and who he is becomes self-evident. Explosions announce weakness because they leak energy outward. Silence announces evolution because it concentrates power inward. That is why the Sigma male does not explode. He disappears, not to be forgotten, not to punish the world, but to be transformed into something that no longer needs to explain itself.